So you're scrolling through TikTok, binge watching a favorite series, and ordering pretty much everything online, right? It feels like we've got the world at our fingertips. But what if I told you that the very platforms making our lives so convenient are a part of a massive shift in how our world works? A shift so big it might be even killing capitalism as we know it. Let's dive into a mind-bending book by economist and former Greek finance minister Yanis Varoufakis called Technofeudalism: What Killed Capitalism. I know, Technofeudalism sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but stick with me, because Yanis argues it's the new reality we are already living in, and understanding it is the first step to maybe, just maybe, changing it. Alright, let's break it down. For centuries, we've mostly lived under capitalism. The basic idea? Businesses compete in markets, they make profits, they innovate, workers earn wages, and consumers buy stuff. Simple enough, you'd think. But Varoufakis comes along and says, hold up, that's not really what's happening anymore, especially if you look at the digital stuff. He argues we've actually drifted into something he calls technofeudalism. Now, to get what he means, cast your mind back into old feudal system. You had the lords who owned all the land, which was the main source of wealth back then. And then you had serfs, who worked that land and paid rent or a hefty share of their produce to the lord, pretty much just for the privilege of living and working there. Now, let's fast forward to today. Who owns the new land? According to Varoufakis, it's the big tech giants. You know the names: Google, Amazon, Apple, Meta, Tencent, Alibaba. Their land isn't physical soil. It's their vast digital platforms, their incredibly complex algorithms, and the oceans of data they control. And thus, well, he suggests that many of us are a bit like modern-day serfs, or what he calls cloud serfs. And what about traditional businesses, the ones actually making stuff? Many of them have become what he calls vassal capitalists. They still produce goods or offer services, but to reach us, their customers, they have to go to Amazon or to advertise on Google, paying a significant rent to these digital fiefdoms. So we can say that technofeudalism is a new economic system where big tech companies, called cloudalists, act like feudal lords, owning digital platforms, cloud fiefdoms, and extracting rent from users, cloud serfs, and traditional businesses, vassal capitalists, replacing traditional markets and profit with platforms and rent. So what exactly is this digital land made of? Varoufakis has a name for it: cloud capital. And let me tell you, this isn't your grandpa's factory or his trusty old machinery. Think about it this way. Traditional capital is fairly straightforward. A factory uses machines to produce physical goods. A farmer uses a tractor to produce goods. The main goal is to make things and then sell them for profit. But cloud capital, that's a different beast altogether. It's the complex algorithms that decide what pops up on your social media feed. It's the enormous server farms that store and process all our data. It's the digital marketplaces themselves, like Amazon.com or App Store. Cloud capital is the algorithms, software, hardware, and vast amounts of data controlled by big tech. Its primary function isn't just producing goods, but rather modifying our behavior and creating platforms where these tech giants can extract cloud rent. Now, here's the crucial part. Varoufakis argues that cloud capital isn't primarily designed to produce things in the way that factory produces cars. No, its main purpose is to grab our attention, to actually manufacture our desires, and to get us interact constantly with the platform. Every single click we make, every search query, every like, every purchase, even the time we spend just scrolling, all of that feeds and strengthens cloud capital. We are, in a very real sense, constantly working for free, helping to build it up and make it even more powerful. So how on earth did these tech giants become our new digital overlords? It's a fascinating story, and Varoufakis points to a few key developments. First off, a major turning point was the 2008 financial crash. After that massive global meltdown, central banks pumped literally trillions of dollars into the economy to try and save it. But here's the twist. A huge chunk of that money didn't go into building new factories or creating traditional jobs. Instead, savvy investors saw the opportunity and poured it into the booming tech sector. This gave big tech the enormous financial firepower they needed to rapidly build and expand their cloud capital. Secondly, there was the privatization of the internet. You see, the early internet was conceived as something more like a digital commons, a space for free and open exchange. But over time, it gradually became more enclosed, with large companies creating these walled gardens, their proprietary platforms. And thirdly, and this is a big one, that's our free labor. Yeah, you've heard me right. Every time you post a review for a product, share a holiday photo, unintentionally train an AI with your search queries, or even just browse a website, you're providing data and content. This makes these platforms more valuable and their algorithms smarter. The catch? You're not typically paid for this incredibly valuable contribution. We effectively became the unpaid workforce, busy building their cloud capital day in and day out. So it wasn't really some evil master plan hatched in a dark, smoky room. It was much more like a series of events, innovations, and economic shifts, which step by step led us to where we are today. We got these amazing free services, and in return, well, they got a new kind of empire. Okay, so capitalism might be morphing, or as Varoufakis says, dying. But you might be thinking, why should I care if my Instagram feed is still full of fun stuff and my cat videos are free? Well, Varoufakis argues the consequences are huge and they affect all of us. For starters, let's talk about the end of real markets, or at least the markets as we knew them. Take Amazon. It isn't just another online shop. For many sellers and buyers, it is the entire marketplace. It dictates the rule of the game and extracts a pretty big cut, that cloud rent we've talked about, from almost every sale made by other businesses on the platform. Now, that doesn't sound much like free market competition, does it? It's much more like paying a tribute to the lord of the manor just to be allowed to trade. Then there's the uncomfortable truth that we become the product and the unpaid worker. As cloud serfs, we generate enormous value through our data and through our engagement. But this value isn't primarily captured by us or even by businesses trying to sell us things. No, it flows upwards to the platform owners. They develop such sophisticated systems that they often know what you want even before you do, and then subtly, or even not so subtly, shape your choices. This naturally leads to another major issue, the rising inequality and the imbalance of power. This whole system concentrates immense wealth and, more importantly, power in the hands of a very few cloudalists. They end up controlling the main channels of information, how commerce happens, and increasingly even our social interactions. That's a lot of power in a few hands. And this brings up to a really crucial point. Is democracy itself under threat? Think about it. When a handful of unelected tech bosses wield so much power to influence what we see, what we think, and what we buy, what does that ultimately mean for a healthy democratic debate and genuine decision-making? It's a serious question. Finally, Varoufakis argues that this system could lead to stifled innovation, or at least innovation of the wrong kind. Instead of focusing our brightest minds and vast resources on solving really big world problems like climate change or disease, a disproportionate amount of brain power goes into making algorithms even more addictive, and even better at extracting our value and their rent. Just imagine you're a small business owner trying to sell some cool, ethically made t-shirts. You might find yourself having to pay a huge chunk of your hard-earned revenue to Amazon just to get your t-shirt seen. Or you might have to spend a fortune on Google and Facebook ads. That money goes straight into the pockets of cloudalists, not necessarily back into making better t-shirts, innovating, or paying your workers more. It changes the whole dynamic. So with all that said, are we just doomed to be digital serfs forever, endlessly tolling through the cloud fields? Well, Yanis Varoufakis doesn't think so, but he's very clear that we would need some pretty radical new thinking if we want to change the course. He suggests a few big ideas to get the conversation started. First, he talks about democratizing cloud capital. This is a core idea. He throws out concepts like a cloud tax. Imagine, for instance, if a platform like Amazon had to pay a small percentage, say 5%, on every single transaction they do on their platform. And that money wouldn't just disappear. It would go into a public fund, perhaps to be used for public services or to fund for digital literacy. Another interesting idea is to rethink free services. We love free, right? But as the saying goes, if you are not paying for the product, you are the product. So what if instead of these free services, where our data is the currency, we had a system of universal micropayments? You would pay incredibly tiny amounts for the digital services you use, and the creators of the content or service would get paid fairly and transparently. This makes the whole value exchange visible and honest. Then there's the urgent need for a digital bill of rights. We need much stronger legal rights of our data and how it's used by these corporations. We need real ownership of our online identities and the ability to control our digital footprint. And perhaps the most ambitious idea is what Varoufakis calls collective ownership of cloud capital. He puts it very powerfully. To own our minds individually, we must own cloud capital collectively. This is a profound statement. It could mean looking at things like public digital infrastructure or perhaps even user-owned cooperatives for the platforms we use every day. Now, these are definitely bold ideas, and implementing them wouldn't be a walk in the park. This incredibly powerful cloud capital, which shapes so much of our lives, shouldn't belong to just a handful of billionaires. Okay, so those are some big systematic changes, but what about us, right here, right now? Can we, as individual consumers, as users of these platforms, actually make a tangible difference? Well, let's look at an example from a non-digital world for a moment. You've probably heard about various consumer boycotts against big companies. Take Starbucks, for instance. In recent times, they faced significant boycotts and online campaigns, often linked to various social and political issues. And guess what? Reports showed that these actions did appear to impact their sales figures and even their stock price. It's a clear example of people making their voices heard directly with their wallets. This really shows that collective consumer action can have an impact, even when you're against massive global brands. So this brings us to the really big question. Could we potentially do something with the giants of cloud capital, all your Googles, Amazons, and Metas? Well, it's definitely a trickier proposition. I mean, how do you boycott Google when for so many people it is the internet? How do you completely avoid Amazon when it's become the most convenient way to get, well, pretty much everything delivered to your door? Their services are often free at the point of use, which makes it different, and they are so deeply embedded into the fabric of our daily lives. They're often like monopolies controlling digital roads than just one coffee shop which you can choose to ignore. But here's some food for thought. First, it's not necessarily all or nothing game. Maybe it's not about completely logging off and disappearing from the internet forever. That's unrealistic for most of us. It could, however, be about making more conscious choices. Perhaps it's about actively supporting smaller independent platforms, or maybe using their privacy-focused alternatives whenever possible. Even just being more mindful about the data we share and who we share it with can be a step. Secondly, raising awareness is crucial. Just understanding what technofeudalism is and how cloud capital actually works might be a great first step in itself. Talking about it with friends, reading books, sharing videos like this helps to get the conversation going. Thirdly, we can support regulation. While our individual actions absolutely matter, many experts argue that when it comes to dealing with the sheer scale and power of big tech, we also need strong government regulation. This could mean things like antitrust actions to break up monopolies, or the implementation of robust data privacy laws that truly protect the citizens. And we as citizens can advocate for these changes. And finally, we are seeing examples like Make Amazon Pay campaign or strikes by Amazon warehouse workers, who Varoufakis might call the cloud proles or the cloud proletariat. Varoufakis himself suggested that a coordinated digital strike or a mass boycott, even a short one, might send a powerful message. Imagine if millions of us collectively decided not to use a particular dominant platform for a single day, or collectively decided not to buy from it. That would be noticed. Of course, the huge challenge there lies in the coordination needed for such action. Look, technofeudalism is undeniably a provocative and challenging idea. And it's fair to say that not everyone agrees with all of Yanis Varoufakis' conclusions. Some critics argue that big tech companies still innovate like traditional capitalists, and what we are witnessing is perhaps just a more extreme, data-driven form of capitalism, rather than something new and unique. But regardless of the precise label we put on it, what's absolutely undeniable is that the rise of big tech and proliferation of the cloud capital have fundamentally changed our economy and indeed our society. These technologies have brought incredible innovations and conveniences, no doubt about it. But they've also brought with them immense challenges. Challenges to our privacy, our individual autonomy, and even the way how our democracies function. The good news is the future isn't set in stone. Understanding these complex dynamics, as laid out by insightful thinkers like Varoufakis, gives us the tools to start asking the right questions, the important questions. What kind of digital future do we actually want to build? Is it one where a tiny handful of cloud elites effectively call all the shots? Or do we want to strive for a future that's more democratic, more equitable, and the one that genuinely empowers individuals and communities? Something to consider for all of us. Thanks for watching.